Hello everyone, today's going to be a bit more of a quicker tutorial. We're going to begin the first episode in our tutorial series about how to make some blueprints for artists and how they can spice up the world with some code on top of their models. So in this one we're going to be making a spline mesh builder. So you can drag out points, so we have our spline mesh here and we can drag it out and rotate it, for example, and make another point over here and do all this fancy stuff. So that is the demo. So getting into the actual code for it, so we have imported a model, and this was provided thanks to a good friend of mine. I'll put some links to some of his content down below. You can see his YouTube channel and his Twitch and check out some of the stuff that he does and we've been working on. So I have the mesh, so now we're in our content, blueprints, world objects is a new folder we created, and then also we're going to add a new blueprint called type actor called Spline Mesh Builder. So if we add a static, this is just a demo, but if we add the static mesh, I just wanted to explain something about making spline meshes really quickly. You need the origin point, which is the point where you drag from, to be right at the edge of one of the models. So if we take, for example, the cube that's built into Unreal Engine, you'll see that the point is in the center. So when we scale out one side, it'll scale on both sides actually. So this is not what we need. And for example, if the origin is at one side, when we scale one side, it will only scale from one side. So we're gonna delete this, make sure there's no static mesh in the scene, otherwise it will be a little confusing when you start to actually place this thing. So the only thing we do need is a spline. And now we're going to go to our construction script, which you can find in the functions category. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get all the points on the spline. So we'll drag in the spline, get number of spline points, and then we'll do minus integer, we'll do -2, and then we'll do a for loop here. So the reason we do the -2 is, so in our current example, as you'll see right now, there are 2 points, 1, 2. So when we get number of spline points and we -2, the first index is going to be 0, as well as the last index is going to be 0, because 2 minus 2 is 0. So it will only be called once, and that's exactly what we want, because we want to build a mesh from here to here. As soon as we add a second one, it will be 3 points, so -2 is 1, so there'll be 0, when the for loop is 0, it'll build this section, and then when the for loop is 1, it'll build the next section. So I'm going to delete that extra point for now, and then we're just going to go back into the code here. So the first thing we're going to do is add a spline mesh component. And we're going to set collision profile name. And if we add back in a static mesh, we need to make sure that we match the capitals of one of these profiles perfectly. So we're going to do block all for this one. If you plan to make your actor move at all, you might want to do block all dynamic, and that will allow that to happen. So let's make sure we delete our static mesh that we use to check the collision profile names, and we're going to do attach component to component. If you're using an older version of Unreal Engine, we're using 4.25 here, but if you're using an older version, you're going to want to make sure that you find I believe it's just called the attach to component in the older versions, and you want to just use the one where the return value is the target. So now let's drag in from the default scene root, the scene component, that's the root object, and that's going to be the parent. Next we're going to drag off again, and we're going to set the static mesh this time. Set static mesh, and we're going to promote this one to a variable, and this one's going to just be called like mesh to use or something, whatever you want. So, and we're going to make sure this is set to instance editable and expose on spawn. And what that does is when we drag it into the world, we will be able to actually change the variables for each one. So we'll create a branch next, promote this to a variable, and we'll say change material. And if change material is true, then we want another line from the Spline mesh component, and we'll say change material or set material. And if you had more than one, you could do like get num materials and do like a for loop again through these to set each material index, and just drag the index into there. And you would want this to be the last index, probably -1. So we'll just drag that into true, and then we'll promote this to a variable. Set instance editable and expose on spawn, just like the other one, and then we'll say this one is material to use. And from false, off of our Spline mesh component return value here, we have a little node now that we can change, so we're going to do set start and end. And let's clean that up. And we'll drag from false on the branch, drag that in, and also from the true after we set the material, we'll set the start and end as well. Clean all that up. So next what we need is we're going to need a reference to the spline, and we're going to say get location and tangent at spline. Get location and tangent at spline point. And from the index, we're going to drag off from the for loop and make a little thing down here. Copy paste that node, and then we add 1 to it, so we can get the current location and then the next location as well. And that's another reason why we do that -2 thing, because you don't want to go over the bounds of the actual object. So we're going to drag the target spline into both of them, and we're going to set the location and tangent to the start position, start tangent, and then the +1 is going to be the end position and end tangent. And we can just clean this up real quick if we wanted to. Compile, save, and we need to actually set a mesh. So let's set a default. And we have our thing selected, so we're going to drag that in. And material to use, change material is set to, let's set it to false for now. And now it should be all set up. So if we drag in our spline mesh builder, and for example we'll scale it down just a little bit so it's not as huge and obtrusive, and then we'll get it to a point where we will be able to actually reach it. So we'll do like right here. And then it might be a little hard to click, so you just want to find your spline point right here, and you can drag it out so you get a little space. And then if you hold Alt and drag out again, it'll create a new spline point for you. We can drag this one up and then drag out again and rotate it maybe a little bit and move it over, and then we'll create a new spline point over here, new spline point over here, rotate it again, drag it back out, new spline point, and we'll just circle back. And we'll have it drop us off right here. And let's walk on it and see if it works. So it looks like it's working 100% perfectly. If you do have some troubles with collision, what I recommend you do is go over to your mesh, and you can look at the bounding boxes. So if we look at collision, simple collision, that's changed right now. If we go back to project default and we do simple collision, you'll see it's a big box that encompasses the whole thing. And if you check out complex collision, it looks like it fits the actual mesh a lot more. So if you didn't set up your collisions in the actual mesh, it's a bit tricky migrating from stuff like Blender and stuff like that. What you can always do is just go down to collision complexity and say use complex collision as simple. That will make it so that the actual complex collision overwrites the simple collision, which is used inside of Unreal Engine. And there we go. That is all. Oh, and last thing I wanted to show is we didn't properly set our variables. So if we go back to our Spline Mesh Builder and we say instance editable and expose on spawn on the change material boolean, now we should be able to check it and change this to, for example, one of our emissives. And if we uncheck it, it will reset it back. Even if we change our material, nothing's going to happen until we actually set that to true. Awesome. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys all have a good one. Take care, and be sure to check out the person who provided the mesh for this tutorial down in the description. Also, you can join our Discord and, you know, get some tips or meet some cool people or get some help from me. If you get stuck anywhere or have some help for your own projects and stuff like that, I'm always willing to help out. Alright, thanks for watching. Take care. Stay safe out there. Bye.